In today's podcast, I talked to my longtime friend Annette about her home country of Latvia, travel blogging, and making money as a creator. With a popular Instagram promoting the digital nomad lifestyle, Annette has been on the road living for 5 years and is currently based in Bali. Have you ever wondered what it's like to come from one of the least known countries in the world?
In a way, it's really good because it's a always nice conversation starter.
Annette tells us all about Latvian identity and to what extent Latvia is influenced by Russian culture. Alternatively, I share my travel stories in Latvia and how I was finally able to secure my Belarusian visa in Latvia's medieval capital city of Riga. And with that all being said, let's dive right into it. Hi Annette, what's going on?
Hi, Drew. Hi, great to see you.
Where in the world are you right now?
Right now, I'm in Indonesia, Bali. This is where I have spent past few months of my life, and yeah, talking to you from Bali.
Sounds like a terrible place to be.
Right? I know it's the worst. Absolutely the worst.
I'm super jealous right now. So, for a little context for listeners, we actually met in 2018 in Bangkok at a meetup that I did at this co-working space called Hubba. I did like a talk and a meetup, and we met there. I remember I'm very good with faces, so when I reconnected with you, I definitely knew that I met you. What was going through your mind back then? And that was what, 4 years ago?
Yes, that was 4 years ago. It was actually a really monumental time in my life because I had just started to travel full time and start my own travel related online business, which was a travel blog back then. And Bangkok, Thailand was actually the first place for me where I moved. Basically, I left my home country, Latvia. I left everything behind and flew on a one-way ticket to Bangkok to basically just see what will happen, how the life will turn out. But the goal was to basically travel full time. And at that time, I was really getting into all the travel content creation stuff and everything. And I learned about you. I started to follow you on Instagram and watching your videos. And then like at one day, I remember you were posting something about doing a meetup in Bangkok, and I was like, "Wow, this is so cool! I just arrived here, and you are doing a meetup, and I get a chance to meet you." So it was really exciting, and you were the first travel creator that I looked up to that I got to actually meet in person. So basically, yeah, it was really memorable time for me.
Wow, I'm completely flattered and honored by your comments. Something that stuck out to me that you just said is that you started with travel blogging, which I did too. So it kind of like the whole point is you just got to start doing something and then it just kind of grows and evolves into something else and then you figure out what works best. So that's really inspiring that you started with blogging as well. I did that from 2012 until 2015. I was a blogger.
Yeah, well, blogging is, I think, a very good way how to just start to understand the travel creation space and just get into it, and then you move on from there.
Absolutely. So one of the most interesting things about having you on the podcast is that you are from Latvia, and
Yes.
you know I have a bunch of different guests here from around the world, and we celebrate their country and where they grew up, and different cultural things, cultural identity. So go ahead and tell me about your childhood growing up in Latvia. Like I've been there before. I happen to love it. Riga is beautiful, but I'm guessing the majority of people they have they just heard the word Latvia. They don't know what's going on there. So just tell me about life in Latvia as a kid.
It was, I think, pretty unique experience. Like in Latvia, we have four seasons, so very different weather, and you get to do a lot of cool things growing up and as an adult. So my childhood, when I think back of it, it kind of I start to think about learning to snowboard from a very young age because we had deep snow and winters, and then my summers. I lived in a city called Tesis, which is almost 80 to 100 kilometers from Riga, and it was a very small, very cute little town. I lived there, but my summers were spent on the countryside. And each Latvian will basically tell you that they would live in a city and go to school and everything, but whenever they could, they will go off to countryside because that's for Latvians pretty much the best way how to relax from school, from job, from everything, just to head out there. Either they have a cottage or they have grandparents living in the countryside, and I had also my family living in the countryside there. And then you go there and you learn to take care of like animals, cows and goats and stuff like that, which is really really interesting in that sense. You get that kind of experience from early childhood, and yeah. And after that, I just moved to Riga. So as most people do when they graduate, they move to Riga, and then life is different there. But from the childhood, it's all about like countryside and being outside the house, playing around. So yeah, that's small town glory.
You know, when I was in Latvia, I went bungee jumping in this town called Sigulda.
Sigulda, yes, of
Sigulda.
course.
Do you know
Sigulda,
Sigulda?
yes. I know it's not too far from me. It's like 30 minutes drive, so I've been there a lot
That place
also.
is so beautiful. It's one of the best small towns in all of Europe that I've been to. And then I went bungee jumping there with my Latvian friend. We went out to like some really beautiful restaurant on this nice patio. And then we went up to the Baltic Sea to. We didn't really swim because the water is freaking cold.
Yes,
But
that's true.
but it was nice to be up there. And I don't know.
Yeah.
I think Latvia is just one of those hidden gems, like kind of like Lithuania. Like my great grandparents are from Lithuania, so I went back and just kind of checked it out. But I really like that part of Europe, including Estonia too. It's just like just tucked away, little pristine, perfect little community. I guess maybe it's not perfect. Why don't you dig a little deeper about like what's happening there? I mean, so when I was in Latvia, I don't want to get. This is not a podcast about politics, but I was staying in this Russian neighborhood in Riga, and it was like all Russian. I mean, like Russian television stations, Russian newspaper. It was as if I was in Russia in this, and there was even like Soviet compounds, apartment
Wow.
complexes that I was in. It was like crazy, crazy Russian. Is it like really separated in Riga? Like, kind of give me some background on that.
Mhm. Actually, yeah, that's something you can experience in Riga mostly, and then there is one part of Latvia which is near to Russia border, and there are a lot of Russian-speaking families living there, and so you can basically experience what you just described in those two places. But in other parts of the country, not so much. For example, myself, when I was growing up, I never had any Russian speaking people around me, even though I would say that around 40% of Latvian population is Russian speaking. They are like Latvians, fully Latvians, but they speak Russian in their families. So yeah, up until I moved to Riga, I was basically never exposed to like Russian culture or Russian language or anything. But what's an interesting fact is that if you want to actually work in, let's say, in Riga, and it's in hospitality industry where you would have to talk to customers and everything, you have to be able to speak Russian. So Latvian, there is one language, one main official language, which is Latvian. But you know, if you are dealing with customers, you have to be able to speak Russian. It's like a rule, which is not an official rule, but it's a rule that like it has to be like that. So it was quite challenging for me when I moved to Riga, like working. I remember I was working in a hotel, and then there was every second person like calling on the phone or coming and talking to me was a Russian person. And yeah, so I had to learn pretty quickly.
Is it kind of tense? Is there like a rivalry between like, no, we're Latvian, we don't want Russian, and then the Russians? From my experience, the Russians were like, we don't want to be speaking Latvian, and it sounds like in your hometown you didn't have Russian and you weren't surrounded by it. So, is there like a reluctance of Latvian people to learn Russian?
I would say no, not at all, because most Latvian people actually speak Russian because 30 years ago, Latvia was part of Soviet Union, and all the people, for example, the generation of my parents, grandparents, and so on, they all spoke perfect Russian because that was the language back then. But at the moment when I was born, so my generation and now younger generation only learned Russian if they were exposed to it in their families or in their neighborhoods. If the other children outside that we were like playing with, if they would speak Russian, then we would learn. But since I didn't have that experience, then I learned it at school. Russian is one of the languages we have to learn. English and Russian as the second one. But yeah, so most of Latvians speak Russian anyways, and for Russians, it's therefore it's not as needed to learn Latvian if they are not interested in it because they will always get by with Russian living in Latvia. So that's the case, I would say.
This might be a weird question, but do your parents or grandparents they never identified as Russian, even though it was the Soviet Union? They were always
Yeah.
Latvian, or did they identify as Russian?
Yeah, no, they didn't. They always identified as Latvians because Latvians have like really long-lasting traditions and sense of like community and everything, and they never identified as Russians. We have a lot of Russians who arrived from like Russian-speaking countries, and then they kind of like started to live here, and then turned more Latvian in a way, and their children are officially Latvian. But for my family, we are fully generations of Latvians, and they never identified any differently. Yeah,
It seems like you've been on the road for the majority of the last like 4 or 5 years, right?
that's true. Yes.
Is there anything that you miss about home? Food, family, like what do you what when you think about Latvia, we're talking about it now. When you think about it, what do you really miss the most?
Okay, I will tell you there are two foods that every Latvian misses when they are away from their country. One is like sweet cheese dessert called karums. They are like small square like sweet cheese things, and they are actually very popular all over the world because like I remember once I was in Hong Kong and I walked into a just random small grocery store and I opened like the fridge to look for sour cream or something, and I'm shocked because I see those Latvian karums, the Latvian brand written in Latvian, those sweet cheeses, and I was like, yes, I'm in heaven. So that's one thing. It's for me and everyone you will talk to, I guarantee. And the second thing is dark rye bread. Latvians eat a lot of bread, and bread is the thing that everyone misses. And like, for example, when I hear my friends or anyone else when they're saying, "Oh, I have some friends or relatives coming from Latvia," and then everyone's always like, "Oh, ask them to bring garums, cheese, and dark rye bread." So
You
those
know,
are the two top things.
what's funny is that like all of Central and Eastern Europe, they love rye bread. Like I used to live in Prague, and I'm actually going back there next week. I'm going to be living there for the whole summer. Actually, they always just have this dark rye bread. And then when I went to like even in Poland, they do it, and not all of Eastern Europe. I don't really recall that in Romania, but definitely in like Ukraine, they like rye bread. And then I'm guessing in the three, northeastern countries of Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, like, what is it about rye bread? Is it just something that you guys have been making for like 5,000 years? I don't get it.
I think that's the case. Well, first of all, it's delicious. It's way better than white bread and more healthy. But yeah, I think it goes back to the traditions of I think even hundreds of years. People in their like countryside houses they had different ways how to and different recipes how to make rye bread like on wooden stoves and like all kinds of like traditional ways how to make it. That's I believe quite unique to like our part of the world specifically. So these traditions, eating that specific bread, has I think it just came from the past. Everyone is doing it from early age up to like being really old. So I think that's where we got it from, and we are used to. And yeah,
All around the world, it's like bread or rice, right? Like in the US, it's also
yes,
bread. But anywhere in Asia
yes,
is rice. And even in like Latin
yes.
America, like Mexico is rice. And in Colombia, rice is like a staple. It's just funny. It's like you got to have that like food, like bread or rice. So you can't find good rye bread in Indonesia?
I haven't seen any actually. I haven't tried or seen or anything. I've seen like some versions of like German rye bread, but it doesn't look. If I look at it, I see that it's not actually the same. So I think it's always best to keep that for like when I go back home and then I get it. But yeah, for Latvians, as you said, we have dark bread and boiled potatoes always. These are the two main things that will be in every meal. We don't have
And a
we
lot of
don't eat
meat.
rice that much or meat. Yes, meat for sure. But potatoes and dark bread, two main things of our cuisine.
What do you when you meet people and you tell them you're Latvian, like what's the normal response?
The first response usually, oh, what's that? What did you say? Because people have not heard of it at all. And then I already have like a few sentences that I say, and I could say them in my sleep. It's just like I know them by heart.
Go ahead, Sam.
So Latvia is a small country in the Baltic states, and if you know where is Sweden or Poland, then Latvia is right in between those two. As soon as I mention like Sweden and Poland, people are like, "Oh, okay, okay, Europe," but otherwise they haven't even heard the word Latvia, so they can't even repeat it for some reason. It's so funny, but I'm used to it.
It must be so weird to be from a country that nobody knows. Like, it's complete opposite for me. It's like
Yeah.
annoyingly opposite for me. It's like, oh, American, and then everyone has an opinion about American, whether it's good or bad. They always have something to say when they know you're American. But like Latvia, like I don't know, maybe there's probably like 50 countries out of the 197. There's probably a quarter of the countries that like no one's heard of. And not, I mean, I don't know, like Tuvalu is like one that like for sure nobody's heard of. Like if you ever meet
Yeah.
someone and say you're from Tuvalu, they're not going to know that. Latvia, it's a little bit more known. And there's some countries in Africa like Equatorial Guinea or
Yeah.
I don't know. There's a lot of like really countries that are out there in Africa that like Eritrea. If you meet someone and you say you're from Eritrea, but I guess in Europe it would only be. I guess the only lesser known countries in Europe would be Moldova, Kosovo, maybe. I was gonna say like Montenegro and Albania, but no, people definitely know those countries. I would say, yeah, you come from like the third least known country in Europe.
Oh yeah, that's true. That's true. 100%. I'm so used to explaining where I'm from. It's actually, it's in a way, it's really good because it's a always nice conversation starter because I can start to explain what's that, where is that, and everything. But yeah, as you said, for America, it's very different.
Okay, so somebody has 3 days to travel to Latvia. What are you gonna tell them to do?
All right. So arriving in Riga because there's no other way basically, and then I would say exploring old town of Riga because it's like I think it's the most beautiful part of Riga, the capital city, and a lot of people say it reminds them of like small towns in Germany, in Austria, in like all over Europe. So I think it's a really good place where to start. And then, like, there are so many different things happening, but as you mentioned, Sigulda, I would definitely suggest moving towards Sigulda because that part is actually also like Latvians' favorite part where to go and explore when they are just traveling around the country because it's there are a lot of forests and it's
Yeah.
like mountainous and you get very awesome views like of forest as far as you can see and bungee jumping and all kinds of those activities. One thing that's really cool is like there's a river flowing from Sigulda down to Cesis, where I'm from. So what a person could do is jump on a like small boat and row all the way from Sigulda to Cesis. It will take almost a day, but it's an awesome activity that people do. Latvians love to do it, foreigners love to do it. So a small boat trip from Sigulda to Cesis. And then when you would end up in my hometown, which is a very awesome place because let's say we have the most famous like central place in Celsius is a medieval castle. We have in several cities around the country medieval castles or okay leftovers of them, but still. And there, people can go on a tour, like go through it, and then the guides there they are dressed up in like medieval costumes and everything, and you can even experience like medieval fights and like how life was back then and see that kind of thing and learn about Latvia from also that perspective. If it's a summertime, then again, enjoy nature, go to local markets, eat delicious like local food that people in their countryside and even city gardens grow. That's actually one very nice thing about being in Latvia is that you don't have to look for healthy food at all because it's there. It's so easy to get it. You don't have to go to like organic stores or anything because we tend to eat like really healthy homegrown things, vegetables, like we drink birch sap in springs, which is a juice coming out of the birch tree. And as my mom always says, imagine what can be more healthy than a juice directly from a tree, right? So foodie experience is definitely something to do in Latvia. If you do all of that, then 3 days will be up and you will be in Tallinn, heading back to Riga, and then possibly doing a Baltic trip, which is a very cool thing to do as well because you can really easily drive up to like Tallinn, Estonia, or down to Vilnius, Lithuania, and yeah, spend your time there like that.
I'm ready to book my flight now.
Nice,
That was like the
nice, and
most fantastic description of Latvia I could have ever heard of. And I would challenge any person from Latvia to make a better description than that.
oh,
Congratulations.
very cool. Thank you,
That was
thank
just
you.
like, because I'm smiling the whole time because I've been there and everything you said is like true. There's fruit growing all over the tree and it's just very, the
Yes.
forest. I was very surprised to find forests there. You gotta like keep in mind, Latvia is tiny. It's probably, I mean, I'm from Arizona. Arizona's got to be much, much bigger than Latvia. I mean, Latvia is probably the size of like Massachusetts or one of the small states in the U.S. No, it's bigger than that. I have a map next to me. I can actually look. It's kind
Okay.
of like the size of maybe New York State or Pennsylvania. That's kind of the size of Latvia.
Yeah,
So it's
yeah,
pretty small.
possibly. It's very
Um,
small, exactly.
can you? It's funny every time I say Sigulda, and you're like say like Sigulda. Like how do you pronounce it? The town
Ah, Sigulda, Sigulda,
Sigulda.
Sigulda,
And how do you
Sigulda.
say your hometown?
Texas.
How do you spell that?
It's Cesis. Not the easiest to
C.
pronounce for non-Latvians.
Say it one more time.
Tesis, tesis,
Tesits.
almost because like when you the first letter C in Latvian it's te, so I will say tesis, but you're saying it with S like tesis. That's the
Tesits.
closest for yeah,
Tesits.
almost. You have to
I don't think
practice
I'll ever
that,
get that.
but
I would love to
it's
go
one of the
there.
most difficult ones.
You got to show me around if I come there. I don't know if you'll be there,
Oh, for
but we'll
sure.
try to coordinate.
Yeah, we have to coordinate. It would be so awesome, and I would show you all the best places for sure. There's
It's
really
cool
so much to
because
do.
you kept saying the word medieval, and it's so true. Like Europe in general just has this like dark medieval feel, and especially Tallinn. I think Tallinn is quoted as like the most preserved medieval town, I think in the world or in Europe. But like, I don't know, it's so cool to walk around there, and it really like it feels like nothing has changed in like 600 years, like the buildings. It's so
Hmm.
freaking cool. And Riga has that same vibe. It's like it almost like needs to be like a dark, cloudy day, like walking through Riga. You know what? You know, I just remembered when I was in Riga, because I had gotten so back in 2015, Americans needed to get a visa for Belarus. Now we don't need it. Well, I don't know about the with the war and stuff, but back in the day,
Yeah.
Americans needed a visa to Belarus. So I went to the Belarusian embassy in Tallinn, got denied because I didn't have the right travel insurance. Then I went
Yeah.
in Riga. I went in Vilnius to the Belarusian embassy, got denied again. I was documenting all this on Snapchat because I didn't have videos back then. Then I go to Riga and I knock on the door. I ring the doorbell of the embassy and they're very unfriendly. I mean, I'm sorry. I went to Minsk and they're nice in the city, but in the embassy, those people are like, you don't want to mess with them. And so
Yeah.
here I am, like a 23-year-old knocking on the door. It was raining outside, and I was like, please, can I go to Belarus? And they said the same thing. They're like, you need to get the right travel insurance. You can go to the across the street and you can buy a Latvian insurance, which will cover your Belarusian. I was like, oh my God. So I went and then I had the money didn't work, so I had to go to the bank to pay the money order. Oh my God, it was like a nightmare.
Hmm.
But thank you to Riga. I have good vibes there because they definitely gave me the visa and I was able to go to Belarus. Oh, that's my last memory from Riga because I think I was there for like 5 days and I did all the nature stuff and then the last few days was trying to chase down the visa. So, have you ever had to get like a hard visa before?
Um, well, it's not been too difficult in general, but I was just gonna say that also for Belarus it would be the same for me. I also need to get a visa to go there or also Russia. So I haven't been there, even though these are the two countries right next to us. It was always way easier to travel the other way for like to the other parts of Europe or the other countries. So that's been really great in that sense, like living in Latvia, you have all the Europe right next to you, so you could just go and explore any place, and it's so easy. But otherwise, visa-wise, I've been traveling now in Asia and basically all parts of the world, and haven't had any difficult visas yet. But I guess I haven't been to too many difficult countries yet. So let's
I
see.
think it's an EU passport, right?
Yes, it's an EU passport, exactly.
Have you ever been to an immigration officer and they look at your passport and they call somebody over like to check like what is this, or that's never happened?
I've seen sometimes when I give my passport, they look at it and they make a call and just like double check something probably, and then it's all good because it's an EU passport, and you can tell that from I think the color of the passport. We all have the same color red passport, so they know that it's EU, but they are just like Latvia, what's that? And just like double checking on the phone, and I'm good to go. So I haven't really had any major issues with that so far.
For
Yeah.
sure. So I guess yeah, that's been a pretty interesting talk about Latvia. I thoroughly enjoyed that conversation. I appreciate everything you said, and I'm sure everyone on behalf of Latvia is like applauding you right now because I mean,
Thank
let's
you.
be real. Like, who is the most famous Latvian person in the world that like an American would know?
Okay, I would say right now it's Kristaps Porzingis. He's playing in NBA. I think he's now in Dallas, if
Porzingis,
I'm
yeah,
not mistaken.
yes,
Yes, so he's the most famous one right now. And we have a lot of players in like we've had in NBA and HL, like hockey guys. So sports people are usually the most famous ones
I
from Latvia.
forgot about Kristaps Porzingis. Yeah, that's
Yes,
crazy, man.
yes,
He's from Latvia. Wow, he carries that country on his back. Is it wait? The flag of Latvia, is it red, white, and then red, like
yes,
dark red?
dark red. Yes,
Yes.
we share almost a similar flag with Austria. Only Austria has like uh, light red, and we have dark
Yeah.
red stripes. Yeah,
See, I don't think I have it on my flag wall.
you
No,
should. True, you
I
should.
should. I
After
know.
this talk, you'll have to get it.
Oh man, I'm like gonna start looking up flights right away. This is like really inspiring. Okay, let's shift out of Latvia. Tell me about what are you up to these days? So for more context for readers, like you are really good with social media, and you've been helping me out on my Facebook page to kind of think about how to go viral again because I've been so focused on YouTube, and I have a team now. So you've actually technically we're business partners, which is pretty cool. It came full
Yes.
circle from the first meetup. But
Yeah.
what's your day to day look like? Tell me about life in Bali. How do you make money?
So yeah, right now in Bali, this is just a stop along the way to other places because my goal in general is also to travel to every country in the world. Could be that I got inspired from you at the very beginning. So
Thank
yeah,
you.
I'm always on the move, and because of that, I have managed to find a way how to make my living while I'm moving around. And yeah, one part of it is working with other creators like you, and in the past with some others, and helping with like content strategies and like Facebook, YouTube, everything. And apart, that's just one side of it. And then another side is I actually travel together with one other girl from Latvia, and we 4 years ago we started the blog together, and we've been working on many different projects ever since. She's a photographer and filmmaker, and I'm always in front of the camera. So we are working also with different brands and hotels, mostly with boutique hotels, on like their marketing campaigns, creating content, photos, videos for them. We worked on some pretty epic projects around the world. So that's the second part of what I'm doing. And also starting to get into crypto and making crypto videos and travel videos on TikTok and Instagram. So yeah, that's those are the three big pillars of what's going on in my life day to day.
Now's a great time to buy Ethereum.
Oh yeah, for sure. I've been checking it. It's a bit depressing, but at the same time, the most exciting time ever. So,
Yeah, everything is
well,
crashing to the ground, which is awesome if you want to buy.
I know, right?
But don't take financial advice from me, for everybody
For sure.
listening. It's really cool that you travel with another girl that like is from Latvia. That's really cool. You guys seem that's like adorable, honestly. You should start creating more serious content for YouTube and Facebook.
I should. I definitely should. I was trying to focus on that now as I'm back in Bali because, during COVID travel was slow and everything. So travel content was not an option for that time period. But now, when like things are looking up again and we start to travel and the world is opening up, that's in the pipeline for sure.
Annette, where do you see yourself in 5 years from now?
um, Really good question. I see myself in general living, like I will say, I see myself living the kind of life I enjoy, which is what I'm doing already now, and I want to continue be able to do that. And I see myself hopefully finishing all the countries, just like you did recently. Congrats on that. That was so awesome, so
Thank
inspiring.
you. Thank you. That's so
And
cool.
yeah, so yeah, that's my life turns all around travel and just experiences and living my life to the fullest and like not being in the rat race of 9 to 5, and I'm happy with day to day life. So I just see myself in that light where I am exactly somewhere around the world. That doesn't matter even.
That's awesome. I'm so happy for
Yeah,
you. How old are you?
I'm 32 right now.
Okay, I'm 31, so
Yeah,
it's almost same. Are you born in
almost.
the 89 or 90?
89, October 89.
Oh my God, you almost a 90s baby.
I know, right? Just 2 months.
That's so cool that you get to rep being an 80s, like you're born in the 80s. That's so cool.
Yeah, in a way, it makes me sound really, really old, but at the same time, all good. Yeah.
Um, what is there anything else you want to mention about Latvia or about life? All right, let me ask you. Whenever I interview people, I always ask one question. You can answer this however you like, but the
Mhm.
question is, if you could say any message to everybody in the world right now, what would you tell them?
Uh, all right, let's see. One message I would say to everyone is try and live your life in a way that makes you happy. That's something I tell to everyone. Try to find a way how to like do what you have to do to be able to live your life the way that makes you happy, and that you get to do, you have a freedom of being able to do whatever you want to do. So I'm all about that, and I'm sending those vibes to all the listeners as well.
The vibes have been well received. Thank you so much. You're fantastic.
Sure.
I look forward to continuing our, partnership, and I'm
Sure.
really glad to put Latvia on the map. I think people listening
Nice.
to this would be very inspired. So, thank you. How do we say thank you in Latvian?
We say paldies, paldies.
Paldies.
So for this, you too, Drew. It was great talking to you, and I really hope we will meet up in Latvia sometime soon because summer is the best way to go, June to August. So who knows? Maybe we meet there soon.
Annette, thank you so much. You've been fantastic. I will see you soon. Bye bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you so much for tuning in to this podcast episode. If you feel inspired by this conversation, please share it with somebody who would enjoy listening. And if you're here for the first time, make sure to subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever else you get your podcasts. Also, don't forget to leave a review. Every week, I'm going to be looking through them and highlighting my favorite one. And with that all being said, I will see you guys next week.